Part 16. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 151. Li Qing smoked and looked at Zhou Chaoxian opposite. Mr. Zhou, why do you want to come to me this time? The two of them did not exchange too many pleasantries and went directly to the topic. Li Qing knew that such a day would come sooner or later, because what he said at the charity bazaar last time was Zhou Chaoxian's last life-saving straw. Zhou Chaoxian's expression was a little unnatural, and he smiled sarcastically. There were some surprises in the legislative election. In fact, Li Qing also watched the news on TV and knew that the scandal about Zhou Chaoxian's coercion of the engineering contractor was known to the so-called boss. In his heart, he despised this kind of untechnical conversation, which was recorded and videotaped casually. For example, when he discussed business in Xiangjiang, he always stayed in the bathhouse, and any monitoring, surveillance, or recording equipment was useless. Sitting naked in the water one by one, with a clear view, no worries at all. Everyone here in Wanwan is wearing suits and leather shoes. They are really unprepared and very low-key. Huh? Does Mr. Zhou need money? That's easy to say. Li Qing asked knowingly. Zhou Chaoxian shook his head. Minister Ho has decided to recommend Ding Zhongshu. There is nothing I can do now. He raised his head and looked at Li Qing. I don't know if there is anything Mr. Li can do for me. I will thank you deeply. He came to Li Qing to see if he had any good ideas. Li Qing's eyes flashed, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised. He did not speak, but poured a cup of tea for Zhou Chaoxian. Tea please. Zhou Chaoxian picked up the teacup, took a sip, and frowned. Pudding? Apart from your recommendation within D, don't you have any other quotas? There are limited quotas within D, but there are no restrictions outside. Li Qing I pointed out something. He continued, people from other provinces account for about 10% of the population of Wanwan, and Hakkas in this province account for about 13%. The majority of people in Wanwan are the Hokkien people of this province, who account for 75% of the population, and 2% of the Aborigines. Listening to Li Qing's analysis of the population composition of Wanwan, Zhou Chao didn't say anything. He had already analyzed these things and most elections still depended on the people of the province. This is also the reason why he ran for election in D. Li Qing shook his finger, but the West District, Ximending Pen Business Circle, is different. After my investigation, most of the people in the West District are from other provinces. Only in Menga is the majority of people from this province's Hokkien. When Zhou Chaoxian heard this, his expression changed slightly. He had been focusing his energy on running for election within D, but his campaign for running within D was aimed at the Eastern District, because the Eastern District was within their control. You mean? Zhou Chaoxian tried to ask. Retire D and be elected as a non-party person in the Western District. Li Qing looked at Zhou Chaoxian with burning eyes. Zhou Chaoxian touched his chin, feeling uncertain, but the method Li Qing mentioned was indeed a way out, but the price might be high. Li Qing looked at Zhou Chaoxian, who was silent across from him, and smiled playfully. The rabbit is about to be trapped. Western District? I'm not familiar with it. Zhou Chaoxian hesitated. His business is mainly focused on construction, and he has always stayed away from gang-infested places like the West Side. I'm familiar with it. I've occupied 3 streets in Ximending, and I'll take care of the small gangs next to them for you. Also, I have a good relationship with Luo Fu from the Tiandao League. It is said that he is also one of the legislators and can speak more or less. Li Qing blew a cigarette towards Zhou Chaoxian and said softly. Zhou Chaoxian had no expression on his face as he took the cigarette. He knew that Li Qing must have other intentions. What does Mr. Li want from me? Li Qing let out a sigh of relief and said, Maid, after thinking about it for a long time, I finally came up with an idea. It's very simple. After Mr. Joe was elected as a legislator, what he gave up was what I wanted. Li Qing's words made Zhou Chao stunned for a moment. He didn't understand what Li Qing wanted. I want your taxi business. Li Qing pointed out his purpose directly without being verbose, and he was not afraid that Zhou Chao would not agree unless he gave up his candidacy for the Legislative Council. Zhou Caoxian's Wanbei Taxi Company has always been in charge of his subordinate Sanbao. It is a formal business on the surface, but most of the people inside are members of the community. Once he is elected as a legislator, he will definitely give up this aspect. Okay, Zhou Chaoxian agreed immediately without hesitation. It was a blank check anyway, and everything would be settled later. But how could Li Qing not know what he meant? Now I will take half as a deposit, and when you are elected as a legislator, I will take another half. Don't worry, if you are not elected, I will return the other half to you. I am still very credible. Zhou Chaoxian lowered his head and thought for a moment. The taxi business can't be done in a day or two. You won't suffer a loss by doing this. As long as you are elected as a legislator, this little money will not be considered money. Okay. I believe that Mr. Li's character is as good as Mr. Li's wishes. Mr. Li needs to worry more about the election in the Western District. Easy to say, easy to say. The two looked at each other and smiled, each with their own thoughts in mind. The next day, Zhou Chaoxian held a press conference, resigned in public, and expressed his intention to run for the Western District Legislator as a non-party person. This move made Minister Ho very angry. Zhou Chaoxian, you are trying to drain me of my salary, causing me to be scolded by my boss. Ding Zongshu next to him immediately poured a cup of tea for Minister Ho. Zongshu, you must be successful in this election and don't be afraid of spending money. Ding Zongshu nodded after hearing this. If D is fully supportive of his candidacy, he will be a sure shot. But there is only one default gang quota left, and in the end, they still have to settle with the Zhou dynasty. Here, Li Qing began to contact Luo Fu of the Tiandao Alliance and began canvassing votes for the Zhou dynasty in the Western District. By the way, he threatened the surrounding small gangs. If the Zhou dynasty cannot be elected first, they will immediately pull their flags. As a result, various small gangs were more active than the New World, going around the streets to canvass votes for the Zhou dynasty. Of course, it was not for nothing. The next day, Li Qing sent Monk and Mosquito to take over half of the taxis and established a citywide taxi passenger transportation company. And painted all the yellow taxis red. Brother, there are many cars, but there are no drivers, the monk reported to Li Qing in a low voice. Li Qing smiled when he heard this. No driver? It seems that Zhou Chaoxian still wants to take advantage of me this time. This is easy to handle. I'll give you a chance to return home in fine clothes. Go to Menga to recruit people. You don't have to pay rent and you can earn 50% of the money. Monk and Mosquito looked at each other. The boss was just giving away benefits. You must know that 50% of the company's revenue includes vehicle maintenance, wear and tear, etc., so you can earn very little. But there is a condition. It must be a family member of the temple or back house. Li Qing smiled mysteriously and said. He wanted this method to slowly corrode manga. The monk looked at his eldest brother with admiration. He had been very smart since he was a child, and he immediately guessed his eldest brother's purpose. By the way, when selecting legislators, remember to ask them to choose Zhou Chaoxian, Li Qing continued. Okay, brother, don't worry, Mosquito and I will definitely do it. After saying that, he dragged Mosquito with a puzzled look on his face and walked out of Li Qing's office. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 152. The monk grew up in manga, so of course he knew which community members in manga needed this job in their families. And they are specifically looking for middle-level people who have some influence but are not cornered. In a short period of time, New World provided employment opportunities for some community members in manga. Don't think that if you join a club in Wanwan, you will just yell and drink and do nothing all day long. In fact, the little money given by the club is not enough to cover the entire family's expenses. Therefore, manga, the members of the society who had been favored, gradually developed a good impression of the New World organization. Naturally, it goes without saying that I just cast a random vote. In the past, the big boy would vote for whoever he said he wanted to vote for. Now, because of others' soft talk, of course he voted for Zhou Chaoxian. After all, the vote was secretly voted for, and the big boy didn't know who voted. At the ancestral temple at the entrance of Manga Temple, Jita looked at the dwindling number of pilgrims and sighed. Sitting across from him was the eldest Martha, who came to him to make up his mind. They were the Magi brothers, sworn brothers. Kita, come up with an idea. If the monk does this, the younger brothers will join the New World sooner or later. New World's operations in manga made every one of its subordinates feel unified. Now I feel listless even when I go to collect mountain tea fees. Martha, what can we do now? People don't know the array of guns and swords. No one trusts Mr. Guan anymore. Kita shook his head. Many of his younger brothers started driving taxis, which also made him very angry. It's closer to the north, otherwise we go to war with him directly. If this continues, manga will be finished sooner or later. Martha crushed the half-smoked cigarette in her hand into the ashtray. Beat on the head? It's not like you don't know that the Sanlian gang was directly killed. Now you still want to cower and don't dare to retaliate. We are electing legislators now, so be careful of the police department getting involved. Obviously Kita's boss is much better informed than Martha, so at least we can't start a war now. But small moves are possible. The monk has been very active recently. It is said that he helped New World win a lot of streets. Now he comes to manga to stir up trouble. Get rid of him first. Naturally, no one will dare to join New World again. You are crazy, he is our Maji's son. Martha is still relatively loyal. Although the monk is now working for the New World, it is not to the point where he has to kill him. Kita glared at him, with a hint of anger in his eyes. What? What he is doing now is enough to kill him twice. Martha glanced at Kita, lowered her head and took a sip of tea, wanting to say something. Don't worry about it, I'll do it. Kita waved his hand and said decisively. At this time, Monk and Mosquito, with a few younger brothers, were completing Li Qing's tasks from house to house. Li's Hailong wandered over with Uncle and Bai Ho. Some of the hawkers and stalls passing by greeted him, apparently treating him as the next temple boss. Oh, aren't these monks and mosquitoes? They haven't been prosperous for a while. How about getting rich by following people from other provinces? Seeing the monk from a distance, Li's Hailong said angrily and loudly. Monk and Mosquito also saw Li's Hailong and others at this time. The monk was not angry. After all, the playmates who grew up together still had some feelings for each other. How is Hailong doing lately? The monk said with a smile. Li's Hailong stepped forward and picked the collar of the monk's shirt. Hey, wear a suit and tie. Are you a real estate salesman? You're in the north. The monk could bear it, but the younger brother behind him couldn't stand it. Although they are all young men who have just been recruited by the New World, they have also fought in several small-scale battles with the club. When you say you are from the New World, you should not be respectful to the other person, but you should have the most basic courtesy. This cornered son who lives on the edge is disrespectful to their elder brother, which is a bit intolerable to them. One by one, they stretched their hands to their lower backs. Li's Hailong was also a little flustered when he saw the guy in the defensive midfielder on the opposite side. He and Abio were both showboats. Only the white monkey silently touched the dagger on his waist. The monk also paid attention to the white monkey's movements, turned to the younger brothers and said, "What are you doing? Put your hands down." The younger brothers were reluctant, but they still listened to their elder brother's words and took their hands back one after another. This is the quality of the younger brothers in the New World. If the elder brother doesn't say anything, no one is allowed to move. This is called the rule. Mosquito, don't forget who saved you when you were bullied. Li Hailong also nodded at the mosquito standing next to him. The mosquito's mouth moved slightly, but he didn't say anything. You are so powerful now. Do you know that in the past, as long as I shouted, the whole street would come out? Now look at them. The merchants and hawkers quickly lowered their heads, as if they had not heard what Li Hailong said. Some shops just looked at it and walked back to the house silently. Only half of the shops walked out silently with the guys in their hands. Slowly approached the monk and others. Hailong, I don't owe you or your father anything, and Mosquito doesn't owe you anything. We can't be friends, but we don't have to be enemies. Looking at the neighbors slowly approaching, the monk said softly. He doesn't want to cause trouble in Menga now. After all, they haven't completed the task assigned by the boss Li Cheng. Let's go. Monk and Mosquito walked out of the street with their little brother. Some people intentionally or unintentionally blocked the neighbors who wanted to come forward, allowing Monk and others to pass smoothly. Obviously Li Cheng's strategy has been successful, and manga is no longer monolithic. Profit is the most important thing. Who doesn't want to make life better for themselves and their families without breaking their bottom line? Besides, I heard that New World doesn't charge for high mountain tea at all. If it really comes, I'm afraid most shop owners will welcome it with open arms. It wasn't until he walked out of the street that Mosquito breathed a sigh of relief. There were indeed many people on the opposite side just now, and there were only 8 bullets in the gun. What, are you scared now? The monk said with a smile. Bullshit, I'm not scared, I'm worried about you. After all, you and Hailong grew up together. Be careful, a passerby suddenly rushed out and slashed at Mosquito. Mosquito had no time to react, fortunately the monk pulled him. At this time, a group of people on the street rushed over with swords in their hands. The younger brothers were also very decisive. They took out the pistols on their waists and shot at the opposite side. For a while, the sound of gunfire and shouting were intertwined. The monk also had a sullen face, pulled out the black star on his waist and shot at the person who came. He didn't expect the people in manga to be so bold that they wanted to kill him in broad daylight. More and more people came, and although he shot down a few, it was useless. More people rushed over, and as the bullets in the gun became less and less, the monk shouted loudly, "Go, go quickly." The monk and his group fought and retreated. "Brother, there are no bullets. Go quickly. Let's go together." The monk used up all the bullets in his pistol and put the black star on his waist with care. He grabbed the opponent's sword and started to chop at each other. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 153. Brother, the monk was stabbed 5 times. One of the stabs was on the femoral artery and he almost couldn't be saved. The mosquito was also hit 3 times. The other boys? Zhang Dongzhou shook his head. In fact, the monk and the mosquito were able to survive thanks to the families of the taxi drivers they recruited. It was their combined efforts that saved the 2 of them. Looking at the monk lying in a coma on the hospital bed, Li Cheng nodded towards the one-armed old man who had been taking care of the monk. Let's go. Since they want to play, we will accompany them. Li Cheng said to Zhang Dongzhou. This was the first time Li Cheng encountered someone who dared to challenge him after he made a name for himself in Taiwan. Zhang Dongzhou nodded, with a hint of viciousness in his eyes. After all, it was his first time to take in a younger brother, and he was cut like this. He couldn't bear it. Dongxiu, offer a reward of 100,000 yuan to those who kill us. The reward must be paid by someone from manga. Li Qing smiled cruelly and said that he wanted to make manga's own people chaotic first. Aren't the local gangs in Wanbei moral? This time Li Qing showed them that morality is bullshit in the face of interests. Once New World's reward order was issued, it shocked various large societies in the north of the bay, firstly because of New World's wealth, and secondly because of Li Qing's viciousness. Night falls. Manga is a bit more depressed than before. Hey, is brother Azhong at home? Azhong, who was having dinner at home, heard a familiar shout and opened the door. We're having dinner, Ashwiya. Would you like some? After letting Ashway in, Zhong walked back to the dining table and continued eating. Brother Zhong, I saw you killing someone yesterday. You were so cruel, Ashway asked tentatively. As soon as Zhong mentioned yesterday, he immediately became energetic. It was also the first time for him to fight with a person holding a gun. A group of people chopped down the man holding the gun, giving him the opportunity to brag. I was worried that no one would give me water, so Ashway came. Let me tell you, although everyone in the New World has guns, there are many of us. The sound of a knife entering flesh sounded, and Azhong looked at Faxiao in disbelief. After looking at the knife that had been inserted deeply into his chest, he slowly went limp. Zhong, don't blame me, I can't help it. I owe a gambling debt, and I will be killed if I don't pay it back. Ashway looked at Zhong, who fell to the ground and slowly lost his voice. Third, I'm still 10 short of paying off my gambling debt. Ashway's eyes were bloodshot and he counted excitedly. It turns out that killing brings in money faster than gambling. He squatted down, wiped the knife on Azhong's body, and walked out. The scene here also happened in other places in manga, because not one person accepted the reward. The next day, inside the Patriarch Temple at the entrance of the temple, Kita sat on the sofa, listening to his younger brother's report. What did you say? Azhong is also dead? Who did it? In just one night, 6 key members died, and most importantly, we still don't know who did it. The younger brother shook his head. The people who died were all those who participated in the killing of people in Meoka yesterday. Even fools knew that it was the New World that did it. But I don't know how to kill 6 people quietly in the New World. Kita smoked a cigarette with a frown on his face. He knew that the New World would definitely take revenge, but he didn't expect it would come so soon. In fact, he united with several surrounding gangsters yesterday. As long as New World dares to come, he will definitely suffer a loss. This time he prepared some weapons for lower people. Unexpectedly, New World didn't play according to the routine, which really gave him a headache. Ding ding ding. Kita looked at the phone. It turned out to be a call from a relatively large corner in the south. Boss Kita, why did you offend the New World? The other party's words made him feel shocked. How did he know? Before he could ask, the other party had already said, the New World has started to offer a reward, targeting the entrance of Manga Temple. After listening to what the other party said, Kita put down the cigarette in his hand. He was shocked by the generosity of the New World, considering that the settlement fee at Meoka was only 20,000 to 30,000 yuan. The other party actually gave up 100,000 yuan to kill one person. According to this calculation, it would cost at least several million. No wonder, 6 people died in just one night. You must know that manga is more than just him. Money and silk are so touching. Back up. Let's arrange for the brothers who killed people last night to gather together and ask more people to guard them. Let's see who dares to come. Kita ordered Blackface angrily. Upon hearing this, Hymian quickly went down to make arrangements. In this current situation, The enemy is hidden and we are clear. Only when we come together can we not be easily defeated by others. Blackface gathered these brothers together in the hotel of his own club. Everyone was his own people, and no one else could get in. At a pancake stall not far from the Patriarch's temple at the entrance of the temple, two people were sitting together eating pancakes. Brother Shui, they are all at Qing Shui Hotel on Temple Street. Dozens of people are hiding there. There are too many people to handle. Shui looked at his accomplice in front of him and smiled a little nervously. Maid, it's better to kill each other if we are together. You work as a waiter inside, and I only want you to do one thing, and I will give you half of the money. When the accomplice heard this, his scalp was numb with excitement, and he could not figure out how much half of it was with his fingers. The accomplice nodded after hearing this. Say it, Brother Shui. Buy a few locks. I don't care what method you use to lock them in the room. The accomplice thought for a while and nodded thoughtfully. Night fell, the sky was cloudless, the weather was dry, and it was another clear starry sky. In Qing Shui Hotel, people in several rooms turned on the air conditioner, went shirtless, smoked, and played cards. A small man outside the door locked the doors one by one with a lock. Fortunately, it was an honest door lock, otherwise it would be difficult to lock it from the outside. At this time, outside the hotel, several sneaky people were carrying several barrels, carefully approaching the back wall of the hotel. The barrels still exuded a pungent smell of gasoline, and it was obvious that several barrels were full of gasoline. Shui called a few familiar Haobaikuo members. After all, if the matter was too big, there would always be a few scapegoats. His boat had been booked, and he would smuggle directly to Thailand after the matter was done. As for the money promised to them, let them go to Thailand to ask for it. It's here. Several Haobaikuo members each carried a gasoline barrel and poured the gasoline in the barrel around the hotel. 5 minutes later, Shui glanced at the lighted room and sneered. He lit the gasoline on the ground with a match and ran away without looking back. The flames began to spread upwards, screams continued to sound, and occasionally people could be seen jumping down from the building. Jumping off a building is even more miserable, because the fire started from the first floor. The next day, Kita looked at the hotel that had been burned to ruins, and his heart was full of anger. They were gathered together to protect them, but they were unexpectedly wiped out. If the other brothers had not run fast, they would have been burned to death in there. Damn it, how can you be so cruel? So many lives. Kita looked at his brother who was burned to a skeleton from a distance, and a sense of sadness spread in his heart. Kita, brother, someone said that people from Haobaikuo appeared around the hotel with buckets last night. Hymian whispered. Haobaikuo. Kita's eyes turned, and terrible thoughts turned around in his mind. Li Qing put it aside for now, he had to find Martha to ask clearly. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Bulletin Liang. Chapter 154. Li Qing listened to Zhang Dongzio's report and smiled. This Shui is a ruthless person, but unfortunately he is a gambler. Give him every penny of the money and wait until he gets to Thailand to talk about everything. Zhang Dongzio nodded knowingly. This kind of thing must not be left behind. When Shui arrives in Thailand, there will be fewer people paying attention to him, and it will be easy to deal with him. By the way, how is the monk? Li Qing was very concerned about this little brother. He's already awake. That knife almost killed him. It was very dangerous. Li Qing nodded when he heard this. His real idea was to make Menga a gateway to the new world. Whether he could succeed or not would depend on the cooperation of his opponent. Martha, you have to give me an explanation today. Yesterday, someone saw someone from your back room appearing at Qing Shui Hotel, carrying an oil drum. Kita looked across at Martha angrily. Martha also looked embarrassed. Kita, just because my little brother showed up, it doesn't mean they were the ones who did it. They might be people from the New World. After all, the day before yesterday. He also knew that people from the New World were chopped down in manga the day before yesterday, but unlike Jita, he had no conflict with Li Qing and others and did not participate. Although manga's current power is the largest at the entrance of the temple and the back wall, most of them are Xiaojiatu who want to take over. His subordinate Wen Qian, who was recently released from prison, is also ready to make a move. Martha, are you looking for me? Chen Wenqin walked in wearing a black and white floral shirt. He saw Kitten next to Martha at a glance, and there was a trace of hatred in his eyes. His uncle's hand was cut off, and his cousin was suffocated to death by Li's Hailong and others with 502 glue. He always kept this grudge in his heart. Oh, Wen Qian, Mr. Kita said he saw one of your brothers at Qingshui Hotel yesterday. Can you check which one it is? Martha said to Chen Wenqin. His subordinates are like crazy dogs, and to be honest, as the boss, he can't hold himself back. After hearing this, Chen Wenqin squinted his eyes and looked at Kita. Kita, are you mistaken? You didn't come to New World to find us about this matter? We are not the ones who killed New World. When Kita heard this, she slammed the table and said, don't tell me that Shui is not yours. Kita had already found out clearly that Shui had led people to do this. The most abominable thing was that Shui had already taken a boat to sneak into Thailand last night. Can't find it even if I look for it? Someone has to take responsibility for this matter, otherwise how can Kita, the big boy, take the position? Shui? I want to go to Thailand to make a fortune, and I can't stop him. Chen Wenqin smiled and spread his hands to express that this matter had nothing to do with me. In fact, it was not that he didn't know about Shui, and he even secretly supported Shui's actions. Hearing this, Kita dropped the cigarette in his hand and stood up. What do you mean? You mean you don't recognize it? Why should I admit it? You should go find Shui yourself about this matter. Chen Wenqin choked directly and confronted Jita tit for tat. Then Chen Wenqin smiled contemptuously and said, if you are brave enough, you can find Li Qing yourself. He is the one who bloomed the hidden flowers in the world. All those who deserved to be killed were killed, and the news was naturally made public. Okay, everyone, sit down. If you have anything to say, please tell me. Martha tried to smooth things over. One is his own younger brother and the other is brother Maji. What can he say? I tell you, I will find Li Qing, and I will not let go of anyone who kills my little brother. Mr. Jita glared at Chen Wenqin and walked out of the back hall. Blackface, send people to kill those people directly, Kita whispered to Blackface, who had been following him. Yes, big boy. Not long after, Chen Wenqin received the news that his younger brother had been beheaded to death. Chen Wenqin ignored the objections of Martha's eldest son and took his younger brother to fight at the entrance of the temple. There was real chaos inside manga, with people from both sides fighting each other everywhere, and no business could even be done on the streets. At first, Mioka had the advantage due to their numbers and directly defeated Chen Wenqin's side. But Chen Wenqin belongs to Haobaikyo after all. The other people in Haobaikyo couldn't stand it anymore and joined the fight directly. Even Martha's orders couldn't stop it. An angry Kita scolded Martha, saying that the boss is not like the boss and the younger brother is not like the younger brother. Chen Wenqin was also unambiguous and directly brought a batch of arms from the Sihai gang, causing serious casualties at the entrance of the temple. But after all, the number of people at the entrance of the temple was superior, and the two sides began to stalemate. Li Qing didn't pay much attention to manga either, so he asked them to knock their brains out first. He is currently at Shan Yuan Villa. Master Song's clone technique is so powerful, it's almost impossible to tell the difference. Li Qing looked at Song Miaotian in front of him and said softly. This liar sent his twin brother to South Korea to undergo plastic surgery, which made him look exactly like him, making people think that he really knew the magic of avatars. No, no, Mr. Li is too generous, Song Miaotian said solemnly. Li Qing glanced at him and took out some materials and placed them in front of him. Song Miaotian was stunned for a moment. What is this? I think Master Song will be interested. Song Miaotian picked up the material and was shocked by the information on it. This was the Korean version of the plastic surgery record. Song Miaoti's plastic surgery information is recorded in detail at every stage, accurate to the minute. How could you? Li Qing lit a cigarette. He had already asked Mao Xianmin to look up Song Miaoti's plastic surgery information, but he only came up with it recently. Song Miaotian was like a deflated rubber ball. Mr. Li, please tell me if you have any requests, as long as I can fulfill them. He knew that once this matter was exposed, his image would collapse instantly and his followers would leave him. Once you lose your value to the top management, your fate can be imagined. Haha, I bought the Spirit Bone Tower from Master Song last time. I want to take a look, Li Qing said with a smile. Song Miaotian was stunned for a moment when he heard Li Qing's words. He didn't understand what Li Qing was going to do. He had no choice but to take Li Qing to the place where the Spirit Bone Tower was stored. Li Qing looked at the cabinets, which were densely packed like small cabinets. They were all places where the spiritual bone tower was stored. Pointing to these bone towers, I want them. Song Miaotian was even more confused. He didn't understand the meaning of Li Qing's words. He pointed at the spiritual bone tower in confusion. Them. Li Qing gently knocked on the spirit bone tower. Yes, their information. He knew that the ashes in these ossuary towers were used by senior officials in the Bayan province. With these things, it would be much easier for him to do things in the Bayan. Song Miaotian's face changed drastically. No one knew about this except him and the person involved. He didn't know how Li Qing got the news. You must know that there are the women Minister Ho played to death, the informants killed by Minister Ma, and the enemies of Minister Li. This is also the basis for the existence of Shan Yuan Villa. If these things are exposed, every high-level executive will be shot. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 155. Oh, by the way, there is flour in it. You don't think I don't know about your relationship with Ding Zongshu, do you? Li Qing looked at Song Miaotian with a smile. Song Miaotian's eyes were filled with fear. If people knew that he and Ding Zongshu were cooperating in drug trafficking, he would be dead without a burial place. But what shocked him most was Li Qing's next sentence. Master Song is amazing. Not only did he have an affair with his own followers, he even did not let go of Minister Ho's wife. I admire you, I think the dignified Minister Ho's wife must be very smooth. This sentence directly became the last straw that broke the camel's back. Song Miaotian knelt down on the ground without saying a word. Mr. Li, I will do whatever you ask me to do. Song Miaotian now has only one way to live, that is to listen to Li Qing like a dog. Come, take me to see the real account book of your Shan Yuan Villa. Li Qing came to Song Miaotian for the purpose of mastering the resources of Shan Yuan Villa, which are much more valuable than money. Song Miaotian didn't dare to say anything, so he had to take Li Qing to his computer. Li Qing watched Song Miaotian operate, and the computer showed the flow of this month, from legislators to senior officials of various departments. The lowest legislator can get 200,000 yuan every month. Li Qing also admired the legendary boss. Shan Yuan Villa was equivalent to an underground bank. A lot of black money went through the operation of the villa and reached his subordinates, forming a huge transaction chain. Moreover, most of the people who could enter the villa were his own people, and a ZZ group headed by him was formed. Even if he retired, no one dared to touch him. Because touching him was equivalent to touching the interests of a group, leading to turmoil in the entire Wanwan province. Good, copy it in, Li Qing took out a floppy disk, and Song Miaotian copied all the information into it. If this information is used well, it is a huge fortune, but it cannot be used easily because the backlash is also very strong. Mr. Li, do you have any other instructions? Song Miaotian asked with a lowered eyebrow. Nothing, call Madame Ho to come over, Li Qing said in a low voice with a gleam in his eyes. Song Miaotian did not dare to refuse, and immediately called Madame Ho to ask her to come to Shanyuan Villa. You did a good job, as long as you are obedient, you are still the most wonderful heavenly master, Song Miaotian. Li Qing smiled and patted Song Miaotian on the shoulder. I will go to the hot spring first, and when the minister's wife comes, let her come directly to the hot spring. By the way, remember not to record the video, otherwise, I will kill you directly. Song Miaotian's face twitched. In fact, he was thinking of recording the video and then using it to restrain Li Qing. Unexpectedly, Li Qing's words came true, and he immediately gave up the idea of recording the video. Half an hour later, Li Qing was naked, soaking in the hot spring comfortably. The sound of high heels came from behind, and Zhao Mudan walked in wearing a dark red windbreaker. Li Qing looked up at Zhao Mudan, who was still dressed like a lady, and her high bun made her look unattainable. Ms. Zhao, you are here. Zhao Mudan glanced at the tiger head tattoo on Li Qing's body and was a little shocked for a moment. Let's not beat around the bush, come down. Li Qing narrowed his eyes and examined the woman in front of him. Zhao Mudan bit her lip, looking unwilling. The man in front of her found out about her affair with Song Miaotian. If it was revealed, she would definitely die miserably. Although she and Minister Ho had been playing with each other for a long time, Minister Ho would definitely kill her for his career. Looking at the woman in front of him motionless, Li Qing smiled and hooked his finger at her. The woman seemed to have made up her mind and took off her clothes one by one. He raised his eyebrows, black. Hollow. In the previous life, experts said that women who wear black underwear are generally more bashful. The experts are very talented and can really judge people. He pulled down Zhao Mudan, who only had a few buliao left. He hugged her slender waist as she exclaimed. 2 hours later, Li Qing was lying in the hot spring, looking at Zhao Mudan, who was limp beside him. Madam Ho, I don't have any other requirements, as long as you come to report to me once a week about Minister Ho's recent situation. Zhao Mudan tilted her head and glared at Li Qing. This happens once a week. Will he let people live? She has never seen such a powerful person. Li Qing saw that she was not convinced, and put his hand on her cheek. Please, I'm dying. Zhao Mudan begged for mercy. Li Qing looked at Zhao Mudan with interest, and then asked, why did you fall in love with Song Miaotian, who is so ugly? He had never understood this since his last life. Zhao Mudan had a pretty face, a nice figure, and a good status. Song Miaotian actually succeeded, which made him a little puzzled. Zhao Mudan bit her lower lip. It turned out that she knew Song Miaotian earlier than Minister Ho. It was because of her that Song Miaotian won the appreciation of Minister Ho and was in charge of Shanyuan Villa. After listening to Zhao Mudan's narration, Li Qing realized that Song Miaotian was also a ruthless person. He gave his first love to Minister Ho and got his current status. If this happened in ancient times, he would be a figure similar to Lu Buwei. I'm leaving. I've been out for too long, Zhao Mudan said softly, with a pleading tone in her voice. Well, remember, if Minister Ho has any situation, report to me at any time. So Zhao Mudan wore her wet underwear. She put on the clothes on the ground one by one. She turned into the aloof wife of Minister Ho again, and was completely different from the one who called her husband in the hot spring just now. Sure enough, the more beautiful a woman is, the more likely she is to lie. This contrast made Li Qing very excited. Zhao Mudan glared at Li Qing with a reproachful look and walked out. Damn, he is really a dull type. After Zhao Mudan left, Li Qing remembered that it seemed that Crow had been outside for more than 2 hours. "Call Song Mi out Yen," Li Qing shouted loudly, knowing that there was someone in the next room. Not long after, Song Mi out Yen walked in. "Mr. Li, what do you want?" "Prepare a few women for my little brother outside." "Ah. Okay, okay." Song Mi out Yen was stunned and said quickly. 20 minutes later, Li Qing put on his clothes and planned to find a place to wait for Crow. As soon as he went out, he saw Crow, standing in front of the car in a listless manner. "Crow? Didn't Song Mi out Yen arrange it for you?" Li Qing blurted out. Crow raised his head and looked at his boss. "It's arranged." Li Qing didn't dare to ask any more questions. He knew Crow was fast but didn't expect him to be so fast. He started foaming as soon as he got in. In the car, Li Qing listened to Crow's boasting and suddenly said to Crow, "I'll buy you some African catabin bark some other day." Crow looked at his big brother strangely. "What's that for?" "Just eat it. How can I harm you? Why are you talking so much nonsense?" You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 156. Li Qing listened to Zhang Dongzio's report, and found that both the Mioka and Haobaikuo gangs in manga had temporarily stopped fighting. Stopped? What's going on? They were fighting well, why didn't they stop fighting? It was not in Li Qing's interest for the two gangs in manga to cease fire. The best thing for the new world was for both factions to suffer losses. Not sure, it seems that someone named Grey Wolf will mediate tonight. Zhang Dongzio scratched his head and said. Li Qing shook his head and said it was definitely not because of Grey Wolf, he didn't have that much ability. He guessed that the two sides would not be able to reach a conclusion if they continued fighting, not to mention that they were all in manga, and they were familiar with each other, and their subordinates didn't want to continue fighting. Grey Wolf gave a way out, and both sides followed suit. Where is it tonight? Let's take people to take a look. He wanted to see this Grey Wolf. By the way, bring Mosquito with you. Okay. As night fell, several Mercedes-Benz cars stopped at the door of the Japanese tavern in the alley of manga. Mosquito got down from the passenger seat and opened the car door for Li Qing. Li Qing got out of the car and looked at the Japanese tavern, smiling contemptuously. You are really servile, wooden clogs. Japanese tavern. Li Qing got angry when he saw these. In the room of the tavern, the two big bosses of manga sat opposite each other, with the Grey Wolf with grey hair in the middle. Kita and Chen Wenqin looked at each other, looking like neither of them would give in. Martha looked at Kita awkwardly, then at Chen Wenqin. The smell of gunpowder in the room was still strong. Well, manga is so small, everyone is related to each other, what's the point of fighting anymore? Martha tried to smooth things over. I know Wenqin. I spent 2 years with him in prison. He has a bad temper but is reasonable, Grey Wolf said. Chen Wenqin glanced at Grey Wolf and nodded, then picked up the wine in his hand and clinked it with Grey Wolf and drank it all. Grey Wolf had always taken good care of him in prison. This time Grey Wolf came to be the peacemaker, so he had to give him face. Kita saw Chen Wenqin looking away and stopped confronting him. He was under a lot of pressure during this period. Many backbones had died, and Chen Wenqin had obtained some arms, so he was a bit stuck. Hearing that Grey Wolf was mediating, he also took the opportunity to get off the mountain. The atmosphere in the room instantly became much more relaxed. Kita didn't keep a straight face, but said to his son, Zhailong, toast to Grey Wolf. Li Zhailong sat crookedly, picked up the wine glass and toasted Grey Wolf from a distance, Brother Grey Wolf. The voice of Brother Grey Wolf made Grey Wolf's face twitch. Kita's son? So handsome. He picked up the wine glass and drank it all. Now among the young men in manga, this is the most impressive one. We must be careful, otherwise we will be killed in an instant. Chen Wenqin looked at Li's Hailong with a sidelong look. It was this man who suffocated his cousin to death. Grey Wolf patted Chen Wenqin's legs. Kida's son, come here. I've been in there for 3 years. I really thank you for taking care of my family for me. I, Wenqin, will definitely repay you when I have the chance. Wenqin opened his eyes wide and stared at Kida opposite him. He always remembered the hatred. Heh, don't talk about those useless things. How about the dozen lives of Qingshui Hotel? Kida's son put down the wine glass in his hand and said loudly. He was given hundreds of thousands of yuan for resettlement allowance, and now his family members are crying to him. Go to New World. You have the guts to do it or not. Chen Wenqin didn't tolerate him. At this time, there was a noisy voice outside the door. What are you doing? Who are you? What do you want? It instantly attracted the attention of everyone in the room. Swish, the shoji door was opened. Li Qing walked in with Zhang Dongzhou and Mosquito. Jita saw Li Qing's eyes wide open, as if he wanted to kill him. Li Qing, what are you doing here? Li Qing. Others said secretly. So he is Li Qing, the boss of New World. Li Qing didn't care about Jita's murderous eyes. I heard that the 2 big gangs in manga are talking here, I came to see. He was not shy, and sat opposite Grey Wolf. The room suddenly became silent, and no one spoke. What are you talking about? Keep talking. Li Qing waved his hand casually, letting them continue. Chen Wenqin glanced at Li Qing, but he was not afraid of him. We are talking about Li's Hailong, the most outstanding young man in manga. Chen Wenqin spread his hands towards Li Qing and pointed at Li's Hailong. Li Qing looked at Li's Hailong and smiled disdainfully. This kind of person who dares to do but not to take responsibility is actually the most outstanding in manga. It would be unfair if manga did not decline. Li Qing ignored the others, but looked at the Grey Wolf opposite with interest. Grey Wolf, right. The Grey Wolf opposite nodded. Boss Li, I have heard of you for a long time. Li Qing pointed at the mosquito behind him and said, this is Zhou Yiwen, one of the most outstanding young people in our New World, and the other is He Tianyu. The Grey Wolf stared at the mosquito, obviously recognizing him as the son of his old lover. Mosquito toasts to brother Grey Wolf. The Grey Wolf's face twitched again. Damn, today the seniority is not big. The mosquito behind him filled his glass without saying anything, came to Grey Wolf, bowed slightly. Brother Grey Wolf. This alone made Li's Hailong look inferior, and now it seemed that the mosquito was well behaved. Just now, Li's Hailong didn't move his butt, which was obviously disrespectful to Grey Wolf. Not bad. Grey Wolf said with a smile, and drank the wine in the glass. Li's Hailong looked at the mosquito opposite him angrily. He used to be a little follower around him, but he didn't expect that he would be so powerful after a few months. This made him feel a little unbalanced. Humph, outsiders are unreliable. Although the voice was small, everyone who was doing it heard it. In addition to Li Qing and others who looked unhappy, Grey Wolf's face also became gloomy. Chen Wenqin looked at Li's Hailong with amusement. This idiot offended 2 gangs with 1 sentence. Mioka will be defeated by him sooner or later. Oh, it seems that you have a problem with us outsiders again. Li Qing looked at Li's Hailong and said. Hey, Li Qing, the child just said something wrong. You won't argue with the child. Although Jita was also very angry about Li's Hailong's casual interruption, he was his son after all, so of course he had to protect his cub. Jita's words directly put Li Qing on the shelf. Mosquito behind Li Qing rushed towards Li's Hailong and slapped him in the face. Li's Hailong didn't react and was knocked to the ground. The room was in chaos, and each of their subordinates was ready to move. Ahem, I think it's a fight between children, you won't be so petty, right? Li Qing directly returned the words, looking at Kita with a smile. You. Kita stood up in anger. Martha quickly pulled him down, shook her head, and pointed to the window with her eyes. There were many people outside the window. Let's compare the most outstanding boy in our new world with the most outstanding boy in your manga. Li Qing said after taking a bite of sashimi. After chewing for a few times, Li Qing spit it out directly. What kind of thing is this? You're eating raw meat and drinking blood. Li Hailong wiped his mouth unconvinced. What are you competing for? Li Qing waved his hand, and Zhang Dongzhou took out a revolver and a bullet from his arms and put them on the table. Russian roulette. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 157. Everyone in the audience was stunned. They had seen ruthless people, but not such a ruthless one. Even Chen Wenqian, who was called a mad dog, gritted his teeth. Jita's face twitched, and he looked at Li Hailong with a gloomy face. He only had this one son, so he certainly knew what kind of character he had. He could beat up small hooligans by relying on himself at ordinary times, but when he met a ruthless one. Okay, Li Hailong looked at Li Qing and said loudly. He was just punched by Mosquito, which made him very unconvinced. He didn't expect that Zhou Yiwen, who was weak before, dared to hit him, which made him furious. When Jita heard his son's words, he knew that he had lost his mind. Hailong. If you don't dare, just admit defeat quickly. You still think manga is the most outstanding, pick your mother. The crow behind Li Qing said sarcastically. What are you talking about? This is manga, not Kunming Street, don't be so arrogant. At this time, Jita's younger brother Hymian stood up and scolded. The younger brothers of the manga faction all stood up, and the New World side was not to be outdone, staring at each other. Li Qing, is this how you manage your younger brothers? Kita looked at Li Qing and said in a deep voice. Li Qing leaned lazily on the cushion and picked up the dishes on the table with chopsticks. Sorry, they are not my younger brothers, but my brothers. As soon as these words came out, the whole situation opened up, and even Grey Wolf and the younger brothers of manga looked at Li Qing inexplicably. Kita was choked back by Li Qing's words. At this time, Mosquito slowly stood up, picked up the revolver and bullets on the table, and pressed the bullets into the cylinder. Everyone's eyes were focused on him, especially Grey Wolf, who stammered and wanted to say something, but still didn't say anything. Li Qing also looked at Mosquito with appreciation, and he was not wrong. Li Hailong, you helped me, I owe you, I'm going to pay you back now, I'll go first. Mosquito picked up the pistol without any hesitation and looked at Li Hailong opposite. Li Hailong looked at Mosquito, then looked at the revolver in his hand, pursed his lips and said nothing. Oh, you New World, you don't take your younger brother's life as your life. Mr. Li, do you treat them as brothers like this? Grey Wolf couldn't help but blurt out. Aling was his first love after all, and he couldn't watch her son die in front of him. Li Qing laughed, it doesn't matter, if Mosquito dies tonight, today one by one, none of you can walk out of this door. He looked around, and the younger brothers behind him began to rub their hands. Mosquito raised the pistol and pointed it at his temple, his fingers trembling slightly. If he died, he could only blame his bad luck. But here, he couldn't let his boss lose face. Pop empty chamber. The younger brothers behind Li Qing all breathed a sigh of relief. Although Mosquito has only been here for a few months, he has a good personality and can get along with anyone. The younger brothers in the New World are very optimistic about him. Li Hailong on the opposite side was so scared that his lips turned white, and his hands and feet were trembling slightly. Kita's face was solemn, and his fists under the table began to clench. He winked at Hymian quietly. He only had this one son and he would never let him die here. Grey Wolf also put down his heart and looked at Li Hailong next to him with interest. He also wanted to see if this man was brave enough. At this time, Mosquito did not put down the gun, but continued to aim at his temple. This shot is what the monk owes you, I will pay it back for him. You are crazy. Grey Wolf stood up and was about to grab the gun. But Mosquito's action was faster, it was empty again. The continuous operation made others unable to react. Mosquito exhaled a breath of turbid air and put the revolver on the table. It's your turn. Although the three words were not loud, they made everyone tremble all over, and looked at Mosquito inexplicably. This is the kind of person that the underworld admires. He is a man of integrity, righteous, and law-abiding. Such people are admired by the entire Taiwan underworld. To be honest, it is difficult for such people to survive in this era, but it does not prevent everyone from admiring him. The three words Mosquito made Li Hailong feel like a soul-stirring song. This revolver has 5 bullets, and now 2 are empty. He has a high chance of choosing that bullet. His face was pale, beads of sweat appeared on his head, and his Adam's apple kept beating. No, no, I don't want it. His feet kept kicking back, as if the gun on the table was a flood beast. Kita looked at his son disappointedly, stood up and quickly picked up the pistol. I'll do it. Before others could organize, he shot himself in the temple. Bang, the gun went off, and this time there was a real bullet. Everyone thought Kita was dead, but Kita did not fall down, nor was he shot in the head. Blank, bullet. Haha, Jita, you don't really think I don't care about my brother's life, do you? Li Qing laughed and said to Jita. Obviously, Crow and Zhang Dongxiu, who had not taken any action from beginning to end, knew about this matter a long time ago. Mosquito really didn't know. At this time, Mosquito looked at Li Qing with admiration, and the loyalty item on his head had reached 100%. And Jita's face became even uglier. Manga Temple lost too badly this time. Jita, I admire you. Li Qing also admired this kind of old-fashioned gangster in Taiwan, but he was always eliminated by the times. He looked at Li Hailong again, sighed, and shook his head. When Jita heard Li Qing's admiration, he felt worse than killing him. Everyone looked at Li Hailong, who was curled up in a ball, with contempt, and even the younger brother of Mioka looked at Li Hailong with contempt. Let's go. Jita shook his head and walked out the door first. He was too ashamed to stay here. Manga lost, and he lost too. It was Li Qing's trap from beginning to end. With a little trick, Mioka lost the adults, and people's hearts were unstable in the future. Hymian and other younger brothers pulled Li Hailong and followed Jita out. When Masha saw Jita leave, he also left with a few younger brothers. The room that was full just now was now only Li Qing, Grey Wolf, and Chen Wenqian. Li Qing smiled and shook his head. Now the gangsters in manga only know how to drink and play with women all day long, and they are also practicing the hereditary system, as if it is the Qing dynasty now. After saying that, he glanced at Chen Wenqian. Chen Wenqian was slightly thoughtful after hearing what Li Qing said. But Grey Wolf felt that Li Qing's personality was somewhat similar to that of his own bully. Mr. Li, is there a chance to cooperate? Grey Wolf raised his glass and toasted Li Qing from a distance. Li Qing smiled and drank the wine in the glass. This Grey Wolf was a reasonable person. Cooperation. It can be considered. There will be a chance. Li Qing said in a perfunctory manner. Grey Wolf came here mainly to set up a gang in manga. Li Qing already regarded manga as his own possession, so how could he let others interfere? Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 158. Boss, let's just forget it, Crow asked strangely. This time, his boss was rare and didn't kill anyone. The moment he saw Kita, he thought his boss was going to take over the whole group. Killing is just a sign of incompetence, killing with a borrowed knife is the highest level. Zhang Dongzhou looked at the crow whose mind couldn't turn around and said. You understand again. Crow said angrily. Li Qing was smoking and listening to the two people arguing in the car. In fact, he was borrowing Chen Wenqin's knife to get rid of those who were in the way. Since Grey Wolf can borrow Chen Wenqin's knife, so can he. As for whether Chen Wenqin will follow his plan, he has no worries. Old and new grudges are still blocking his way. If Chen Wenqin doesn't take action, he will never be the boss in his life. Minister Ho's house. Minister Ho, what orders do you have at this late hour? Ding Zongshu sat respectfully on the sofa opposite Minister Ho. Zongshu, the current situation is very unfavorable to you. The Zhou dynasty has a strong voice in the Western District. What makes Minister Ho feel strange is that Zhou Chaoxian seems to have no foundation in the Western District, so why can he get the support of so many people? If the operation is not good this time, Ding Zongshu may lose the election. When the time comes to the boss, it will be difficult for me to explain. Minister, what do you think we should do? Ding Zongshu looked embarrassed. He is a big boss. If you ask him to kill people, it's okay. If you ask him to think of ideas, he won't be able to come up with any ideas even if his scalp is bald. Minister Ho gave him a hateful look. If Ding Zongshu wasn't a local and loyal, he wouldn't have chosen him. I have to spend time and effort all day long to help him find a solution. Isn't this easy to handle? What is Zhou Caoxian's identity? What is his wife's identity? Minister Ho guided us habitually. But Ding Zongshu was not a person like Zhou Chaoxian after all, and he didn't understand what Minister Ho meant at all. Zhou Chaoxian? Aren't you a businessman? His wife has no job. Minister Ho patted his forehead and said, damn it, you are so stupid. Is Zhou Chaoxian a gangster? Was his wife once Miss Wu? If this news comes out, I won't believe he can still be chosen. Ding Zongshu's eyes lit up when he heard this, he clapped his hands and shouted. The minister is so clever. This time the Zhou dynasty will die first. Although Wanwan does not restrict the identity of candidates, the common people in Wanbei are still dissatisfied with the underworld. Once this news comes out, it will be a big blow to the Zhou dynasty. Outside the study, Zhao Mudan listened briefly to the conversation between the two, and left in a hurry for fear of being discovered. Then while taking a shower, she called Li Qing. The ringtone of the cell phone woke Li Qing from his sleep. Looking at the unfamiliar number, he frowned, wondering who was calling so late. Hello. The sound from the other side was very small, and there was the sound of water running, like taking a bath. If Li Qing hadn't had sensitive ears, he wouldn't have heard it. Hearing the slightly familiar girl, he raised his eyebrows and said, what? You just left and you missed me. The person on the other side was silent for a moment, and then said, he met Ding Zongshu at home, and it seemed to be about the legislative election. Li Qing knew that he was referring to Minister Ho. After listening to Zhao Mudan's narration, Li Qing hung up the phone. Haha, it's still the same as in the previous life. You must know that most of the votes Li Qing solicited for Zhou Chaoxian were related to the underworld. The exposure of Zhou Caoxian's identity would not have any impact on Zhou Chaoxian. But the Zhou dynasty didn't know it yet, so it could take advantage of this. He decided not to tell Zhou Chaoxian. After all, rushing business is not called business. Only by asking Zhou Chaoxian for help can he gain greater benefits. Just as Li Qing expected, 2 days later Zhou Chao lost his temper and came to visit. At the entrance of New World Hall, Li Qing's office. Mr. Li, I didn't expect Ding Zongshu to be such a bastard and play dirty tricks. Zhou Chaoxian patted the table and said angrily. Since Ding Zongshu exposed his identity, there have been many voices opposing him in society. These days it has really bothered him. Now he is putting all his money into his candidacy. If he fails this time, he will lose everything. Mr. Zhou, don't be anxious. I wonder if you have studied the electoral system before. Li Qing looked at Zhou Chaoxian, who was restless, and said, America? What do you think Mr. Li has to say? Zhou Chaoxian's eyes lit up. Li Qing indeed had a way to solve his current predicament. Haha, the United States obviously attaches great importance to human rights. So some candidates started to stack buffs on themselves. Zhou Chaoxian touched his chin in confusion. Stack, buff. In my heart, I complained a little bit about Li Qing, for even saying a word and selling a lawsuit. Li Qing looked at the puzzled Zhou Chaoxian and explained, in the United States, if a person is labeled as TXL and racial minority and vulnerable group, he is invincible. Even if he commits murder, the judge will give him a light sentence. Similarly, didn't Ding Zhongshu say that you are a gangster and your wife is a dancer? You directly claim that you have left the gangland and are a prodigal son. Your wife has been, husband and wife. Isn't that enough? You have the label of prodigal son turning back on you, and you continue to promote that you really want to do something for the people of Bayan. Zhou Chaoxian listened to Li Qing's words, and his eyes shone with excitement. Yes, holy shit, this character is okay. Mr. Li is a great talent. It's just that my underworld business won't be divided in a while. Li Qing smiled and said, what's the difficulty? Mr. Zhou, you can temporarily transfer to the same city taxi company. Anyway, this company was just established by me, and the foundation is very clean. Even if the other party wants to investigate, it is not convenient. Zhou Chaoxian naturally knew what Li Qing was thinking. Most of his underworld business was concentrated in passenger transportation. It's a bit early to get rid of it now, but it's okay. After all, if I am elected as a legislator, I can wash my name in an instant, and the underworld business will be cut off sooner or later. But my brothers Zhou Chaoxian pretended to be very embarrassed. Mr. Zhou, if you don't make a decision, you will suffer from the chaos. With them around, you will never get rid of the burden of the underworld. Li Qing was also happy to play along with him. The two looked at each other and smiled. Things went very smoothly. Li Qing accepted Zhou Chaoxian's passenger transportation business in its entirety. It can be said that he has already mastered half of the passenger transportation in Wanbei. As for the personnel, only a small number of management personnel were left, which was worthy of Zhou Chaoxian. The vacant driver position is also arranged for Mosquito to continue to use people from manga. Now more and more manga people are making a living under Li Qing, so they are not as averse to the new world as before. Now when Mosquito walks in the streets of manga, people greet him everywhere. You know, this was the treatment that Li's Hailong had before. How is it, monk, are you almost well? Li Qing happened to have time today, so he came to see the monk who had been lying in the hospital for 2 weeks. Brother, you can be discharged tomorrow. The monk smiled and showed his biceps to Li Qing. Okay, there are still many things waiting for you to deal with. Li Qing looked at the monk with relief. Young people recover quickly. Brother Zhang Dongzhou hurried in and whispered in Li Qing's ear, Kita and Martha were killed yesterday. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 159. Zhang Dongzhou didn't avoid the monk when he spoke, and he heard it too. There was an elusive expression on the monk's face. Although he also wanted Kita to die, people are emotional animals after all. After being together for so many years, he still felt a little uncomfortable when he suddenly heard that Kita had been killed. Li Qing knew that Chen Wenqian would take action, but he didn't expect it to be so soon. Where are you now? In the morning hall of Mangachuang. Li Qing sighed. Since the last time I was at the izakaya, I saw Kita holding a gun to his temple without hesitation. There was something in him that admired people like Kita. If Kita were 30 years younger, he might even accept him as his younger brother. But the reality is that there is no other way. Even if Chen Wenqin doesn't do it, he will find an opportunity to kill Jita, not for anything else but for profit. Let's go, let's get to know each other and have some incense. Brother, I want to go too. The monk's voice came from behind. What? He found someone to kill you, don't you hate him? Li Qing asked with a smile. A man dies like a lamp going out. The monk whispered. Let's go. A group of people came to Manga in the light rain. In front of Jita's morning hall, there were already many young people standing at the entrance of the temple. They showed no expression when they saw Li Qing's arrival. After all, Kita died at the hands of Chen Wenqin, which they all knew. They hated Chen Wenqin more than the New World. Furthermore, most of them have family members who rent passenger transport companies in the same city, so of course they are very polite to Li Qing. Accompanied by a burst of greetings of Mr. Li, Li Qing led the people into the morning hall of Mr. Kita. In the past few years, he has attended funerals in Xiangjiang, South Korea, and Wanwan. I couldn't help but sigh in my heart, this may be the end of a mixed society, and few people can end well. Li Qing frowned, Li's Hailong was missing among the family members. You must know that he has to stand in front and say thank you. Apparently both the monk and the mosquito noticed it. Looking left and right, there was no sign of Li's Hailong. White monkey, where is Hailong? The monk couldn't help but ask. White monkey shook his head, I looked everywhere but couldn't find it. Li Qing shook his head and didn't care. He directly picked up 3 incense sticks, lit them and inserted them into the incense burner. Chen Wenqin, don't go too far, get out. Get lost. Get out of here now. There were angry shouts from the temple disciples outside the morning hall. Li Qing curiously walked over with his younger brother. This Chen Wenqin was very courageous. He killed someone and still wanted to offer incense. Is killing someone heartbreaking? Have you made a mistake? The murderer is Shui. What do you care about me? Chen Wenqin spread his hands and said with an innocent expression. Wu Wu almost burst out laughing when he heard this. That Shui had been buried in Thailand a long time ago, and the bounty given to him had already been returned to the company's account. Unexpectedly, I had to bear a new responsibility. This Shui really died and came back to life. The crow muttered quietly. Fart, Shui died a long time ago. The boy at the entrance of the temple naturally didn't believe it. Who in the entire temple doesn't know about the feud between Chen Wenqin and Jita Dazai? Hey, Mr. Li is here too. Chen Wenqin was very polite when he saw Li Qing. He probably didn't know that Li Qing and his twin brother were mortal enemies. Yeah. Are you coming to offer incense too? Li Qing looked at him with a half smile. Chen Wenqin said hypocritically, they say I killed the big boy Kita. If I don't come, won't I admit it? He recently heard that the New World also had plans for manga. If he really waited until the old guys gave way, manga would have been Li Qing's long ago. Even Grey Wolf said he couldn't see through this person. Since you're here to offer incense, let's offer incense quietly and don't cause trouble. When Chen Wenqin passed by the monk, he heard the monk whisper. The monk couldn't help but blurt out that without the big brother Jita at the entrance of the temple, few people dared to stop Chen Wenqin. This made him a little sad. After all, this was the place where he had lived for more than 20 years. What are you talking about? I'm talking to your boss. Who do you think you are? Chen Wenqin pushed the monk. Li Qing narrowed his eyes and looked at Chen Wenqin. I only want to say a few words to you to save face. Your eldest brother Martha is not qualified to talk to me when I am here. If you don't keep silent, I will not let you out of this door. Of course I have to protect my little brother. Hearing this, Wu Wu and Zhang Dongxiu took out the pistols at their waists without saying anything. Click, the pistol was loaded directly. Chen Wenqin glanced at the monk sinisterly, then walked out of the morning hall dejectedly with his head lowered. The younger brothers at the entrance of the temple all looked at Li Qing gratefully. At least this person stepped forward and allowed their older brother to leave in a more dignified manner. Li Qing also returned to the car with his brothers. There were no outsiders in the car. Zhang Dongxiu drove the car by himself, with Crow in the passenger seat. "Brother, why didn't you kill that Chen Wenqin just now?" Crow asked curiously. Li Qing smoked a cigarette and smiled and said, "The heat is not enough, we have to wait a little longer. Sometimes the melon is not sweet after being forced." Crow shook his head. Although he didn't quite understand, he believed that his elder brother was right. "Brother, brilliant." The crow gave a thumbs up and flattered him. "How clever." The crow's veins popped out. "That's enough for you, Zhang Dongxiu, I've tolerated you for a long time." Chen Wenqin suppressed his anger and walked out of Jita's morning hall. He did not dare to be presumptuous in front of Li Qing. Originally, he thought that after killing Kita and Martha, he could easily take over manga. Now, judging from the situation, there might be some waves. He immediately found Grey Wolf and asked for help. "Grey Wolf, now that Kita and Martha have been killed, as long as you support me, I can immediately establish a gang in manga." Chen Wenqin extinguished the half-smoked cigarette in his hand. Grey Wolf looked at Chen Wenqin and took a sip of wine. He had long been optimistic about manga, a good place, but he didn't expect that the New World would intervene. If he missed this opportunity, he might not have another chance in the future. But the strength of the New World made him feel daunted. Now the whole Wanwan Road knows that the New World is crazy. The equipment is even more complete than the Wanwan Amphibious Reconnaissance Battalion, and it's worth fighting. He shook his head. "There is only one way now, that is to find your big brother, Brother Ren of the Four Seas Gang." Chen Wenqin lowered his head and said nothing. Although they are twin brothers, the two never contact each other, and they don't want to ask for help even if they encounter great difficulties. The reason is nothing more than a woman named Ajin. Is there no other way? If it doesn't work, I'll get some arms. He didn't want Sihai to get involved. It's true that he wanted to drive away the tiger, but he was afraid that if he drove away the tiger, the wolf would stay and not leave. Grey Wolf glanced at Chen Wenqin. "Do you know how much a set of individual combat equipment costs in the New World? People from small places have poor knowledge. They think they can kill anyone by buying a few rifles." Grey Wolf took a deep puff of the cigarette. "I tell you, 14,000. Before Grey Wolf finished speaking, Chen Wenqin raised his head excitedly. "I have $, Grey Wolf continued. "As for whether to ask your brother for help, you make your own decision," Grey Wolf said, threw down the cigarette and walked out. He decided to see the wind direction first, and he still didn't wade into this muddy water. He couldn't see through Li Qing. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 160. Chen Wenqin looked a little ugly. Each person was given equipment worth $14,000. They were beaten with their heads. He threw down the cigarette in his hand and cursed. Now he was in a dilemma. Kita and Martha were dead. Now was the best time to unify manga. Who would have thought that Li Qing suddenly appeared and made a clear gesture to occupy manga? At this time, Chen Wenqin realized that he was doing wedding clothes for others. Killing the two big sons directly cleared the obstacles for the New World in advance. With the current mass base of the New World in manga, it is afraid that it is more than his own. Does he really ask for help from Aran? He hesitated. Until Kita's eldest son was buried, Li Hailong did not show up. Everyone in Manga Temple was very disappointed. Such a person was not qualified to sit in the position of the eldest son. At the same time, they were also very panicked because they didn't know whether the temple would still exist in the future. Everyone looked at Hymian. After all, he was the most senior in the temple. When Li Hailong was not around, he would be the leader. But Hymian knew his own business. It was okay for him to help the big brother of Jita. If he was allowed to be the big brother, he would be dead on the street the next day. After all, Li Qing, Grey Wolf, Chen Wenqian and others were eyeing Manga. Whoever took this position would die. We must find Hailong. The position of the big brother must belong to him. Hymian's eyes turned and he ordered the little brothers in the temple. The little brothers heard the words and scattered. However, Li Hailong was hiding in the secret base of the Prince gang at this time, drunk. Since the monk left, he realized that he was nothing without the monk. People used to compliment him because his father was the big brother and he had a brave and resourceful monk under him. Now the two big trees around him are gone, and he has lost his support. Hailong? You're here. The white monkey and uncle walked in and looked at Li Hailong, who was drunk. They thought that Li Hailong might be in the secret base, and they came to look for him, but they didn't find him. Don't pull me, I'm nothing. Chen Wenqian, the bastard, killed my father, but I didn't dare to take revenge. Li Hailong said drunkenly. The two were very sad to see their friend who had grown up like this. The white monkey's eyes condensed, clenched his fists, and said nothing. There was no way, Li Hailong didn't leave, so the two had to stay here to guard him. Until midnight, the white monkey suddenly opened his eyes, touched the knife at his waist, and walked out of the warehouse. This time he wanted Chen Wenqian to pay the price. He stood at the corner for a long time, and finally waited until Chen Wenqian came out of the store. Watching Chen Wenqian finish instructing his younger brother, he walked into the store again. Ami is gone, it seems that there is no one around him. Good opportunity. The white monkey pulled out the knife at his waist and slowly approached along the street. He immediately lifted the shutter door and rushed in. Before he could react, someone pointed a gun at his head. Chen Wenqian looked at Bai Ho and smiled contemptuously, there are very few people as brave as you now. Even Li Hailong doesn't dare to come, but you dare. Awesome. Without saying anything more, Chen Wenqian waved his hand, and Bai Ho was knocked to the ground instantly. The monk, Mosquito, Li Hailong, and uncle stood in front of the bed, looking at the unconscious Bai Ho, without saying a word. It has now been reported that the gun that killed Masha Dazai was found in Bai Ho's hand. It is rumored that it was Kita Dazai who instigated Bai Ho to kill Masha Dazai in an attempt to unify manga. Plop. Li Hailong knelt down in front of the monk. Monk, I beg you, please avenge me, I know all this was done by Chen Wenqian. The monk's eyes moved slightly, his lips moved a few times, but he still didn't say anything. This matter is not up to him, and he has to go back and ask his eldest brother Li Qing. Seeing that the monk didn't say anything, Li Hailong became more anxious, and he knew that Chen Wenqian would never let him go. Aren't you New World going to set up a hall in manga? I am now the eldest son of the temple, and I agree. As long as you can avenge my father. The monk stepped forward and helped Li Hailong up. Hailong, I will go back and ask my eldest brother about this matter. Mosquito's face moved slightly, he didn't know why the monk wanted to ask his eldest brother. You know, the eldest son of Jita sent people to hunt them down a week ago. They all knew that their boss Li Qing's goal was to take over the entire manga, not to open a hall in manga. After leaving Renji Hospital, the monk didn't dare to delay and went directly to find the boss Li Qing. Li Qing sat in the boss chair, listened to the monk's narration, and shook his head gently. Monk, have you ever thought about this? If we are just opening a hall in manga, do we have to spend so much effort to win over the ordinary people in manga? Li Qing wants to win the hearts of the people. If a gang from another province does not get the support of the locals, it will not be able to stand at all. The existence of Myoka and Haobaikyo is not conducive to our development. Li Qing's eyes flickered as he looked at the monk. He admired the monk's loyalty, but the premise was that it could not hinder the development of the new world and Li Qing's own interests. Besides, have you forgotten? Jita hired someone to hunt you and Mosquito. It's better not to have loyalty without a bottom line. The monk was also very conflicted. On the one hand, Jita cut off his father's arm, and he hated Jita, but the friendship with Li's Hailong made him hesitate. He gritted his teeth. Brother, I will definitely take down manga this time. Li Qing stared at the monk with burning eyes. The monk felt like he was being stared at by a beast, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Okay, prepare a boat for Li's Hailong and his mother to go to the Philippines. After the matter is over, give him some money. Don't let him come back in the future. Live in the Philippines. After a long time, until Li Qing said this, the monk breathed a sigh of relief. The big boss Li Qing just put too much pressure on him. At this time, the monk's loyalty value has reached 100%. Go to work, remember to bring more people. Li Qing waved his hand and ordered. The monk responded quickly and hurried out. Li Qing took a puff of cigarette and looked at the monk's back, not knowing what he was thinking. Zhang Dongxiu, who was standing next to him, hesitated for a moment. Brother, this Li's Hailong. Well, I said I would send them to the Philippines, but the sea is rough, I don't know if they can survive. Zhang Dongxiu nodded knowingly. Cutting the grass and eradicating the roots is the usual practice of the eldest brother. How is the monk? Mosquito asked curiously as he watched the monk come out. He and Li's Hailong and others had not been in contact for a long time, so they did not have a deep relationship. Take over manga, the monk said honestly, sends Hailong to the Philippines. Mosquito was stunned when he heard this, but nodded in understanding. This was indeed a good idea. Now let's call people to start preparing to take over manga. At the same time, Chen Wenqin looked at Aren opposite him with a sullen face. Aren, don't go too far. Manga is mine.